Hello, today we will be talking about how to practically answer your IGCSE music listening paper. So I'm still looking at the syllabus up to and including the end of 2025. Of course, some of this information might still be helpful practically and analytically in answering questions in the next syllabus from 2026 to 2028. But today I'm still focusing on what we know in terms of our Western music, our world music focus, our section C oral, unheard, listening, and our section D set works. So I'm going to speak through three main topics today. We're going to look at what you need to know, the content, tips for phrasing your answers, as well as essential revision resources and tips. So let's start at the beginning. First things first, the listening paper will definitely test your knowledge across music elements and prescribed areas of music study. So I'm going to speak through 7 main things that are important and give some examples of what can be expected and how you can be expected to answer. So of course we have to know our rudiments of basic theory and notation. For instance, dynamic markings, tempo markings, articulations, key signatures and time signatures. So just by general rule of thumb, Cambridge likes to include key signatures up into including 4 sharps or 4 flats, which isn't too tricky, but you do need to know those things, right? So even though the syllabus doesn't say, let us go through B flat major, let us go through F sharp minor, it's sort of implied. So you need to know that. You need to know if you see anything like crescendo, allegro, staccato, legato, what do those things mean? Okay, you should be able to use those technical words, but also you should be able to use those meanings very, very clearly. Then other things you also need to know do revolve around melody and rhythm. For instance, you really do need to understand melodic shape. There are a lot of questions in the paper that I have seen in past forms. Are you ascending? Are you descending by leap or by step? What does your melodic shape look like? Also your rhythm. What is your meter? Then what is your time signature? Are we in simple triple, compound duple? Do you have syncopation? Is there ostinato? Do you have polyrhythms? Anything like that. Also upbeat, which the technical word there is obviously anacrusis. But what is happening in your melody and in your rhythm, and can you explain it in normal English? Then of course we move on to harmony. Here they do want you to know your primary and secondary chords, but they never ask you to write these things out. It's not a theory paper, as you know. So basically, the only thing that they want you to recognize by ear when it comes to harmony is your cadence point. So your cadences, is it perfect? Is it imperfect? They never really ask plagal or interrupted, but do be ready to answer that orally. You don't have to write out these cadences. I do have videos on how to write cadences, and that's great. I mean, you should be knowing how to do that at this level. But in the IGCSE listening paper, they don't ask you to do such. They just want you to recognize, and it's mostly, is this imperfect? Is it perfect? Is it not finished? Is it finished? It's as simple as that. I wish it were a little bit harder in the harmony area. Anyway, on to the next one, texture. Now this is an interesting one because texture obviously means how many lines of music are you hearing, how many forms of melody or harmony or whatnot you're hearing. So you can say things like single melodic line or melody and accompaniment or many melodies at the same time. That's cool, that's plain English, and you should know how to describe music in that way, but you should also know their respective technical words, their music words like monophonic, homophonic, polyphonic, and also the abstract nouns thereof. So monophony, homophony, polyphony. Then when it comes to world music, specifically heterophony or heterophonic texture, which means variations of a theme or a melody that sort of happen milliseconds apart, I want to say, but they're almost at the same time. But the melody is in diminution almost at the same time that the normal melody stays in place. So that's more a thing that'll come up in world music, definitely not in Western music, but your 3 Western music textures you definitely need to know. Then we move on to timbre, which is of course your unique sound each and every instrument or voice makes. Also, in this category, we can also, put in brackets like instrumentation. So you need to be able to identify instruments, but also instrumental or vocal effects, such as pizzicato, arco, or bowing or plucking, and tremolo, mute, melisma, glissando, those types of things. What types of effects different instruments or voices make. Then form and structure. Of course, we are asked to identify orally binary form, ternary form, rondo form, theme and variations, as well as things like phrase lengths, or could even be sub-phrase lengths, but Cambridge is not that fancy at the moment. Lastly, we also need to really understand our periods and context. So stylistic features of Baroque, classical, romantic, 20th century music, as well as then our world music focus, our set works. We need to know how to put things together. So for instance, if we really do here, can tie maybe timbre and periods and context together. If we hear something like a harpsichord, we know that, oh my gosh, that already ties to a certain context and period in history when it's played, let's just say, typically. So we know that a harpsichord is very much linked to the Baroque period, and especially if it's playing old music. Of course, if it's playing jazz, I now know there's neoclassical things happening in the modern era, but definitely they do give you clues, and they're more straightforward on that than you think. So that is everything to do with content. You really do need to know this stuff. It's non-negotiable. If you don't know this, we can't help you with actually phrasing answers, right? Because you need to know the basics, and all those things now that I spoke about, there are the basics. So the big thing, number 2 today, tips for phrasing and answering. So examiners really do look for precise musical terminology that demonstrates you have truly heard a certain feature in the music. Now, of course, they don't always give you a lot of space to write on, and then there are also times where they give you too much space. And even in the mark schemes and stuff, sometimes they only ask you to, write down one word, or they only expect one word. It's very interesting, but you need to just be able to phrase concisely what you hear, and more so use musical words and terminology than your own random babbling, okay? So I'm just going to give you a few examples of vague phrasing versus precise phrasing, and then tell you sort of why the precise phrasing works here over the vague phrase. So for instance, if someone says, the music is loud, rather substitute that with saying, the music is played forte. Why this works is because you use an exact Italian word for a higher mark. So terminology would actually get you higher marks than just vague phrasing. Not that saying it was loud is bad, but rather use your terminology that you know. Later on, if you say it decreases in volume or anything like that, that's fine. Don't even necessarily need to use decrescendo and stuff after that. But right at the beginning of an answer and stuff, I would say do flex the terminologies. Another vague phrase is the tune or melody is high. Rather say the melody has a wide range or a high range, or it has a high tessitura. Because using technical terms to describe pitch range, is a little bit more impressive. Another vague phrase, the music has a good beat. What does that mean? So I don't know, I look at that and think, what does good mean? So is there a bad beat? I don't know. Be specific. If you want to say something like the music includes syncopation or emphasis of the offbeats, and that's usually what people think is a good beat, the syncopated stuff. Be specific. Say the meter is duple, or the music is in 2/4 time. And sometimes it is a bit tricky to distinguish between 2/4 and 4/4, but Cambridge will understand that, and they usually give marks either or. So you do need to specifically identify rhythmic structure or device, and that is more precise than vague. Next, the song sounds happy or sad. Be precise. Say the key is major, creating a joyful mood, or the key is minor, conveying sadness or tension, anything like that. And this works because you link the mood to a specific musical element, which is a key, but you're not using emotive things like, oh my gosh, I feel happy when I hear this. Oh my gosh, I feel tense because I'm writing an exam. No, be specific. Okay, so I hope that gives you a little bit of insight into vagueness versus being more precise, and also why it works. Okay, so you do want to be as concise as possible. You want to write like the shortest possible sentence you can without blabbering and with actually giving the correct amount of information. Okay, hope that makes sense. So really do think about an actionable phrasing strategy, sort of the what, how, and the why. This will definitely help you answer and be more confident in your answers at the IGCSE level. For longer descriptive questions, which there are in the papers, structure your answer according to the following rule to get maximum marks. So 1, what do you hear, which is the element of music. 2, how is it being done, so the specific terminology in music. And then 3, why is it effective? So what role does it play? How does it affect the mood? What is its function practically in music? What is its overall result? What is achieved here for the listener? So an example question would be, how does the composer create a sense of conflict? Okay, I don't even know how to make up how many marks this would count for, but your essential answer could be something like, the sense of conflict is created by dissonant harmony, so the what, particularly chromatic chords, which is the how, which immediately creates tension, and a dramatic unstable mood, which is the why, or the result, the function. And I'm going to make up some nonsense to further along this answer. You could say something like, well, I mean, if it applies to the music, this is further supported by an uneven, irregular rhythm, which is the what, played at an allegro tempo, or fast tempo, which is the how. Okay, so I hope that gives you insight into answering a little bit better. We're moving to the next big topic of today, number 3, which is the essential revision resources and tips. Now, of course, we know we don't have a textbook. And this is across all music syllabuses, so it's not just a Cambridge thing. And I'm not out here trying to say anything. But yeah, it is hard being in the music academic world, especially at school level, because we lack resources. Where other subjects have a lot of resources, we don't. So we have the official syllabus or areas of study from which to glean, but there's not too many things. So watch my videos. I will be making more videos on the new updated syllabus, and I'll try also to steep myself again once more into the AS and A level things. It's just time is a thing, and I think that is why we lack resources. Music people are always so busy doing a lot of things, performing, teaching, composing, just being busy, helping other people. So there hasn't been a lot of created resources for school level. I apologize on behalf of the whole music world for this. But anyway, let me stop babbling and let's get into it. So with the syllabus, get your exact list of periods. Look at the syllabus, know it inside out, know what you need to do. Baroque, classical, romantic, modern, blah. Know your world music focus areas for the year. This ends now 2025. Know your set work. And focus your listening, for example, only on these areas. Okay, so obviously you're not going to do some random other things. Focus on the syllabus. Then past papers and mark schemes, what my videos are for. So this is definitely the most critical resource. You actually get a peek into the mind of Cambridge, into what they have asked previously and what they really want. Their mark scheme will tailor your thoughts into, okay, this is actually what Cambridge wants. Let me sort of convert my answering, my phrasing accordingly. So I would say listen to the audio extract, attempt the questions under timed conditions. Also, you'll get an insight into the exact terminology that examiners expect. You can make yourselves flashcards. I know it sounds silly, but this works, especially with terminology. Create flashcards for every single term listed in the syllabus. The syllabus actually has a list of terms. You could also add some things to it, because sometimes they, put in things that aren't there. But I mean, the things that are there, please already make flashcards about that. So dynamics, tempo, articulation, harmony, and test yourself until you can instantly define them as well as spell them correctly. Because as I said, sometimes you only need one-word answers. So spelling definitely does count. And I know that also everybody who does the syllabus isn't originally from an English-speaking country, and maybe your home language is not English. So this flashcard method will help a little bit with that. I hope so. Then active score analysis. For set works, as well as any extracts that you can hear, that you can get from your teacher, that's provided with a score, skeleton score, practice annotating them. Practice these types of listening things. Link musical symbols on the page, such as notation or dynamics, to what you're actually hearing. And this is a big one. Basically listening and looking and reading, score reading. It's a big one. So we can listen as much as we want to, but we also need to read at this point. Then targeted listening practice. So no matter what you're listening to, whether it's your own music on Spotify or music videos that you like to watch or listen to, things on the radio, things anywhere, even on YouTube. Don't just listen to music for pleasure's sake. Listen with a purpose. Even ask yourself, what is this texture right now? Like, oh wow, this pop piece, it's homophonic. Identify the cadence in your music that you are listening to, whether it is something you are actually playing on your instrument or something that you're watching at a concert or anything. Think, was it phrase finished? Is it an imperfect cadence, a perfect cadence? Am I listening to an amen cadence here in this cantata, in this church music? Wow, what is the difference? Can I hear that? Can I identify it? Can I then go and redo that or play it on my own instrument? Those kind of things. It's a lot of interweaving musical things together. And it does take a lot of responsibility on your part, as well as your teacher or tutor's part. So you're just going to have to work together on this one. People are also going to have to remind you, get your family involved in this. Tell them, ooh, remember to ask me a texture thing there. Remember to ask me, ooh, what instrument is that? Can I recognize this? Do you know what that is? You know, get all out there. Music is not just for the actual IGCSE syllabus, it is for life. So have a nice practical life experience while you're at it. So all that to say, I hope it does help you a little bit. I know that sometimes we just want the mark schemes, or we just want the memo, we just want to pass, or we just want to do whatnot. We want to get our specific grade symbol that we're aiming for. But do remember, this is a journey. So yes, I do hope that this helps you a little bit in terms of phrasing your answers, but also just in terms of listening. It's something that you have to do, you have to practice. It's a life thing. Just like with your instrument, you can't sit back for 5 months and then come back and think, okay, I got this. It's not like that. Music isn't an overnight study, whether we're talking about the practical part or the academic part. So might sound like we're ending on a low note, but actually it's a high note, because we get to experience music. We don't just get to parrot fashion, study something and copy paste from the memory. It's actually something that we live, which I think is very beautiful. So all the best for your upcoming IGCSE music listening paper. You got this.